Hello, I'm Taj, digitally known as Tropic Vibes, the host of Nifty Business, where we highlight NFTs and explore Web 3.0 as we move from pure speculation to creating real-world value. So what would you do if you're on a panel with 5 other speakers and 2 of them do not show up? Well, if it is Web3, you'll just roll with the punches. The good thing about this is when I took the stage at NFT NYC with SirGawain.eth and Kenny Johns, the good thing is I had the comfort of knowing that these guys spent a lot of time in the space. They knew their stuff. I was able to speak with them a little bit before, and it's a good thing that we didn't have this huge elaborate plan already mapped out because, again, 2 of the 5 speakers did not show up. So our panel, entitled The Tokenization of Media and Entertainment IP Ownership and Royalties. Now, that basically covers the entire area of Web3, everything that we could possibly speak about. So it was wide open to our discretion where we would go. So the plan that we went into it, we just broke it up into 3 parts, speaking about the current environment, the challenges, and the future of what the opportunities are. And we just riffed off of each other, just as if we were on a space. We had a quick discussion before it, kind of mapped it out, and it was clear that both of these guys knew exactly what they were talking about. The plan that we had is just feed off of the audience, see what they're interested in, see when they look up from their phones and so forth, and lean into that. So overall, I think it went pretty well. The audio from this is from my lavalier mic. We spoke into the handheld microphones, the typical mics. However, just for the sake of the recording, I also had a lavalier mic onto my shirt. So if you notice that my audio is going to be way more clear than the other guys that were sitting to the right and left of me. But I just want to give you a taste of what went down at NFT NYC during our panel.
My name is Sir Gawain. I've been a developer in this space for a little over 3 years. I've helped build Referral Marketplace and a couple other cool things, work with PoApp and Snapshot and things like that. Along the way, now I'm playing with nouns. I got a couple DAOs and nouns. And just kind of helping them build more tools and platforms for creators to incentivize from moving forward.
And my name is Taj, digitally known as Tropic Vibes, or just straight Tropic. Long story short, I was in Jamaica listening to a podcast in my ear, as I did most of the time. Always listening. You can tell by the accent I don't mean Jamaica, Queens. I mean Jamaica, straight from the island. But I grew up in New York, moved back to Jamaica, and I was listening to tech and business and all the stuff, and then discovered NFTs, fell down that rabbit hole. And I saw the connection between real things that people were building and the space that was fun. Started collecting like I was collecting Pokemon cards back in the day. Came to New York to tell my friends, oh, look, we could have this conversation. Nobody knew what was going on. Went back to the island, started podcasting about the space, and now I'm here just speaking about it and connecting everything with real world value, not just numbers go up, but real things that are being built in the space.
What's up, everyone? I'm Kenny Johns. I'm the founder of Ample. We're really focused on tokenization of IP like in total. So very similar to how people are approaching like real world assets and tokenizing them right through like global exposure. We're looking at IP the same way. So like creating a global infrastructure that everybody can essentially plug into. You'll have marketplaces, chains, creators, brands, individuals, all wanting to plug into like a global network. So right now, if anybody like uses anything Web3, the user experience, it's insanely clunky and there's always issues. So I think it's going to take a while to kind of transition to that like global vision, but that's what we're focused on specifically dealing with.
Yeah, I want to touch on that point. So a lot of things for creators when it comes to monetization is a lot of the services that we use are disjointed. So, you got, for instance, if you do music, you got publishing, you got mechanical royalties, you got performing royalty, you got public, you got all kinds of different pieces, and there's different companies that support and pay out those checks.
And it's different based on different countries too.
There you go. There's another point, wrenching the system. So one of those things that we're trying to mix with Web3 technology is to combine these information together by giving you analytics that you need, and obviously your payouts in one wallet, so to speak.
As an entertainer or a creator, the way a lot of times we like to segment this, whether you are a Web3 creator, Web2 creator, and so forth. At the end of the day, I think it's just an attention economy. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're playing music in the subway or you are trying to build out this massive record label using the blockchain. it's all the same. We're trying to get attention. And I think one of the challenges that we face in the area is this technology, trying to bridge it with the people, right? At the end of the day, you can have the best solution, whether it be in entertainment or anything else using this, but if nobody cares what you're doing, nobody cares what you're building, then you're just building it for yourself. So that way it'll stroke your ego and you can talk about it in a Twitter space or come on a stage with, other builders, but you have no customers, no users or other creators. And where we're at right now is in a challenging environment, and we're all, I know, hear it all the time, very cliche, early, but we are building this out. We're figuring this out together. And that's one of the beautiful things I found with this space is that unlike other platforms, when you're trying to catch up, you actually have the opportunity to pave the way and share others and bring them on. And it's just very interesting. The challenges are great. However, the opportunity are far greater. That's the way I saw this space. And as you can see by the title, we can cover literally everything within this space, but we do have a flow to go through all of this and the tokenization of everything. But long story short, the way I saw tokenization is that you have the bigger picture and then it comes down into little pieces. And all of those areas that are in the title, it can fit into tokenization in the sense that those parts could be broken down into little pieces to represent something much bigger, just like a puzzle piece.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's where like chain abstraction and things like that become really important, right? Because users don't want to have to, already, even if like you're on the Web 2 side, anything media and entertainment is essentially you having to manage 5 to 10 different platforms, let's just say, to do it right.
Yeah.
And especially like for the 98% or 99 even maybe arguably that are independents, right?
Yeah.
You're mainly creating solutions that work for those kinds of folks. So I think definitely understanding that it's already hard for Web 2 people. Mm-hmm. So then when you bring this Web 3, narrative into their paradigms, you really have to make sure that it's super easy, and then you're including maximum exposure, maximum monetization opportunities, right? Because already people don't want to deal with 10 different platforms. Mm-hmm. And then if you're oh, by the way, you also have to deal with 5 different chains. And this one's great this 6 months, and this one's popping off this 6 months, mm-hmm. and this one has this kind of gas, and this one's going to cost, it's nobody wants to deal with it. Yeah. Right. So I think and especially for enterprise clients too, if they have millions and billions, they got to think of viewers and engagements. They got to think how much, that's essentially goes into the customer acquisition costs as well. So there's a lot of these different challenges that you got to face to really, reach mass adoption. So I think then that you're seeing the trends now, there is, I think at this point, there's a validation for the use cases for NFTs. There's a validation for tokenizing IP. And now we need to bring in that even legal, legal enforcement and things. Is your IP even legal? Most of the time it's not in Web3. So that's something else we can talk about, but yeah, happy to keep moving.
Yeah, do you want to hit on licensing? Trap, if you have something on licensing?
Yeah. Licensing is probably one of the most complicated parts when you're speaking about creating anything for that matter, right? The vast majority of us that create something, whether it be music, a podcast, YouTube, any entertainment, we don't necessarily think of the business side first, right? There are some of us that went in there with a business plan and a business model. Then there are people, not pointing fingers at anyone, that was in Jamaica, just went in the closet and picked up a microphone, no intro, no plan, no nothing, set up, figured this out as a way to go wrong, right? So that's how most creators are as far as being in the space. It's not until you realize that you have something of value that you then work backwards to find all the pieces. So with this now, we have the technology in there. We have the creators trying to bridge all of that with the professionals, the legals, and all of these when the laws haven't even caught up. That's why the space is just very interesting. And we have builders on both sides of me that are doing very creative things that are helping people such as myself that are able to then put those pieces together without having to fund and bankroll a legal team and all of those things.
Yeah, for sure. I would say specifically one of the big things we're currently tackling would be creating a very easy process to at least fill out take 5 minutes and fill out a very basic form And that spits out a legal doc that will, like, in our case, that'll go to Arweave, and then that'll be referenceable in the NFT smart contract. So now you buy an NFT and you're like, well, what do I actually own? And like, is this IP even enforceable? And now you can actually, it'll essentially be in the NFT traits, right, in the metadata. So now you can actually see what you have rights to, what's actually enforceable. And I think that's where you're going to start to get a little bit more adoption from even like enterprise clients, because then they can say, all right, well, this is legal IP. Like, we can actually, and then people will know what they're going to do. Even individuals can now work with brands, bigger enterprise clients and stuff like that, if they actually have rights to the IP.
Mm-hmm. And then with the IP, obviously there's monetization with the IP. Before we can monetize it, we have to make sure we have certain countries, I think it may be different, but we have copyrights and things to have to abide by. Again, another piece of the puzzle of being a creator and having your own business. But when it comes to monetizing that IP, it's then a matter of the
technology royalties.
Yeah, the royalty side. So the royalty side is really like, a lot of artists when you hear artists say, oh, I don't get paid from the sale of the album, I get paid from touring, right? So this is another angle, right, where we're performing and getting paid for the royalties of the performance. If you're a writer, songwriter, composer, getting the royalties of the sound recording. So every time it's played somewhere, you're getting a piece of that. So changing that as well on chain is a lot different, because you have different segments that you can add to this now. You can have, when you share a song, the band who shares that song gets a piece of that mint, right? So that's a form of a royalty over time. When you trade that song or a piece of media, OpenSea or whatever, right? You have secondary sales, so that's another form of royalty through over time. So you have all these different revenue streams that actually start to build over time with this one piece of media.
Right.
Also, using that media for other pieces of media is another stream. So you have like movies and things like that, where you can integrate other recording artists, musician elements, and things like that. So collaboration plays a big piece, and being able to split how those people get paid through collaborations as it gets bigger can become a problem over time. But there's things that we tackle as creators.
And just bridging a few of those things together, right? So when I found out that this space was very important and really got me going, there's a real life example that most of you could probably relate to. I have a very unique stance on royalties. My whole thing is anything that I create, I put out there. And personally, I don't care if I'm directly paid by what I put out, hoping that I'm just credited for it going back to me, because I'm under the impression that if I get the attention, I'm allowed to be in the room and on the stage, whatever, I'll figure out a way to monetize it, and I don't have to know all of those things up front. However, with that said, I'm not anti-royalty. I truly believe in supporting artists and so forth. Just because I don't care about royalties for myself doesn't mean that everyone should adopt that and so forth. But I buy music still till this day. Even this morning, the guy in the subway was tearing it up and I sent him a Cash App, right? So I'm not a jerk by any means. However, when I realized it was a huge problem and this royalty thing could solve problems with NFTs, and not going to go into all the details how it became fixed recently with the upgraded ETH, but I bought Adele's album, the 21 album. I was in Jamaica at the time, and yes, Adele doesn't need my money, but for whatever, I love her music. She makes me feel good. Throw her some. She doesn't need my money. I bought the album. Then Google, where I bought it, because everybody in Jamaica has Android, right? They stopped supporting the Play Store music or whatever it is. Gave you the option to either export it to something else or to YouTube Music. YouTube Music is not supported in Jamaica. So now I have all this music that I bought that they gave me something like 90 days to export it to something, and I couldn't do it without VPNs and doing all sorts of things that they probably want me to do anyways. So I said, all right, this space is way better, because now the artist would be paid if I just bought their NFT or whatever it might be. Started telling musicians to just come into the space. Look, somebody will figure out the tech for you. Just know, start creating, be known. And it's no different than creating in Web 2. You just want attention. And as the tech progresses, there's going to be a better way to monetize, because as we saw with that has two problems. Number one, does Adele really get that money? How much does she get? I have no idea. But then also, as the fan who wants to enjoy Adele's music and share it to other people, now I just lost access to it. It's very far removed from the days when you'd get your record, your CD or whatever, and your friends would come over, or maybe you'd swap and trade and sell and so forth. Very far removed from that. So NFTs and having this ability kind of brought me back. Very nostalgic for me personally, right? So that's what drew me into all of this. I start creating all of these things. Again, no necessary business plan, no legal team in place. And I just was always under the belief that I'm just going to put out and we'll figure these things out. And like I was just said, things are now being built that helps on those things. So anyone that says the ship has sailed, this space is dead with that, and we're moved on to the next thing, it's all about AI or something else, like, don't believe that. Obviously, you're in the room. Like, the attention shifts. However, it's just getting started for that. And even at this conference, the amount of people that I met solving these very problems, even one of the booths downstairs, like a lot of the booths downstairs, it's amazing what's rolling out that helps creators that never really had that business plan. They just wanted to put out.
Yeah, for sure. Just because of time, maybe we should like switch into trends and what we see could work like for different people. We did about 3,000 surveys over the last year with different, like on both sides, like creators, filmmakers, showrunners, musicians, at all different levels, right, and brands. And then we also polled as many like potential users, right, like people that buy NFTs, like what do they actually want, right, and what they're willing to spend. What was really interesting out of like 3,000 surveys, what was it, 3%? Yeah, 3% were willing to spend like $1,000 or more on like a creator's NFT collection, right? So that's like, if you think about that math, that's 90K, you know what I mean? So like for any independent creator, right, like anywhere between, 25 to 100K, if you have an audience and you can get 25 to 100K, that's probably more than you're making off. And even if you're like successful, like you have 100, 200,000 listeners per month on Spotify, you're making way more than you would like off a single like NFT drop or a single monetization path, let's just say through Web3, including
Spotify's not fair pay.
Right, right, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you could like look at years and you're like, okay, one thing could make me like way more, right? So like, I think that the biggest thing that we noticed was that most users, they want like inclusion, they want engagement, they want access. Like, I couldn't actually, like, access was like one of those things that we saw like a huge trend. So I think like understanding like if you're gonna create and you're gonna launch, like we're almost looking at it like, if you look at Bandcamp's almost like an individual, like, here's my page, here's all my offerings, right? So like Web3 Bandcamp seems to like be the best option currently. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a filmmaker or showrunner or whatever, right? And then you have all your offerings and access at different tier levels. So people that want to spend $5 and support you have something to buy. Like people that want to spend $1,000, they have like serious access or partial ownership. And again, you got to be careful with all that, obviously, depending what country you launch from and everything. That's where we help out. But like, I think that's kind of what we're seeing right now is the best option is to really go at it on your own, but make sure that you have these tiers and these intelligent structures that like anybody can engage at what level they want to.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I think another key thing is just keeping up as to like, it's kind of tough, but doing your due diligence and research on what platforms are actually tools for us as creators.
Right.
I mean, he mentioned the Bandcamp. I can think of a couple. I'll throw a bonfire that XYZ for anybody who's creators to check out. That's really cool. Example of what you said, and utilizing those tools in different ways as we continue building.
Yeah.
Like these things are going to become easier over time. Right now, it's a lot of, we're just testing to see kind of like, the science experiment where the mouse is cheese, like, how many ways you can put into, a block. And just, so that's not where we are now, but obviously, as you mentioned, it's going to get easier for you guys. But just trying to stay updated on what platforms are coming out and doing your research as to, what matches your brand and what you think is best for you.
And what really excites me about the future of this space really is the fact that for the first time, in my opinion, you actually have the ability to own your audience, right? Now, this is something that's always talked about, especially if you ever created on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, any of those, they definitely do not care. Whatever's good for their bottom line and their corporation and so forth is what happens. Everyone in here, if you look to your right and left, you probably know somebody who had their huge business taken away from them because they either got a Google slap, their profile was locked. Maybe they wanted the what do you call it? The tag when they launched a product that was similar to that, whatever it is, and they lost that. So over time, creators realize that they don't own their audience. However, in this space, the cool thing I like, not only can the fan that wants to engage with it not lose their music like I did with Adele, but then also you have that connection, and very cool things are being built right now, even wallet to wallet messaging. And that's the thing that I love to nerd out on, that I find great as not just someone who's creating a podcast, but also as someone who looks at this stuff from the bigger picture of like marketers. Why are all these companies trying to get NFTs into people's wallets? Because you can research this on your own, but cookies and a lot of these communications that they're using with tags on social media, those are all going away, right? Just within the next 18 months, it won't happen. So how are you going to have that connection and communicate with customers, audience, fans, whatever it is? I think using NFTs, the blockchain, and wallets, by far the best way. People will opt into what they want, not only with their dollars of what they're purchasing, but then they'll give you access based on what they want. So I think it's just win-win on both sides. It segments your list, if you will. You don't have a whole bunch of people that aren't interested. You send out emails or whatever and just goes to the junk folder. These are people that are committed and they want to hear from you. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I think you see, if you really look into some of the most like successful NFT communities right now, I think they're good case studies for anything, but really any project, really. I mean, in general, I think one of the things that's been interesting to watch as Web3 has developed, this new tactic of marketing, like, right? Like these NFT drops, like there's so many just examples now, like even like, you know, if you look at like room zones, like which is happening kind of ordinals right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, they did this massive airdrop, and that engagement and that inclusion now of like all these different projects and then like an entire, you know, network is just massive. So these are like exponential returns on like a singular marketing effort that scaled growth in like 3 months. So to this like massive level that'll probably continue at least for, you know, who knows how long, right? But my point is like there are so many marketing case studies right now using like NFT tech, because once you include people, like, right, you gotta keep them sticky. So like, why do they want to keep coming back? So it's like that's just a product as well. Mm-hmm. But like I think you kind of deploy those tactics like with your media campaigns, projects, and your fans, and you'll have success.
You know, you mentioned something that maybe resonate about the chains that we use as far as our content. That's important too.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, I've done some music releases on Optimism, and Optimism is a chain that actually gives rewards just for using their chain. So I get OP on airdrop just randomly, just usually, just because I put out music. So that's something that maybe I can allocate towards your marketing budget and so forth that we just mentioned. Another thing too, Base does as well. I think Base does it like they have their own rewards from Base, and then it's a super chain from Optimism, so you get Optimism rewards too, I believe.
Right.
So those are other ways too, like, you know, just putting it out, you know, maybe not selling every $7 minutes of your music or content, but just know that the work is seen on the blockchain regardless, so you can reward it somehow, nonetheless.
And just touching those chains, know your audience, right? If you're creating, you're putting out. For example, if your audience happens to be in Jamaica, I could tell you right now, if you drop on ETH, you probably will not get support unless you're going after the 1% of the 1%. Just the gas fees alone will cross them off. So don't just lock into one specific blockchain, one ecosystem. It really depends where your people are, what you're creating. And just knowing your audience. And that's no different than anything else. You just have to know the room you're in. And the same thing, just because we're in blockchain Web3 doesn't mean we're not people. And you just have to continue doing the same thing that has worked forever.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think right now you totally have to look at like, where the users are, right? Like even right now, like the best chain for NFTs is Solana. Like that, like they're accepted on all the major marketplaces. Their volume is just massive, right? So, and like if you go into their communities, I mean, there are a lot of like just like really, really active communities. So I think knowing where you want to go and why is like major. So like you have like do your research on that, and then also like make sure that onboarding experience is smooth, and find someone who's going to actually help you execute that. And that's probably how to move forward.
All right. Got 1 minute left.
I know we didn't even get to like any of the cool stuff like AI creator comments, like all that stuff. It's like coming. So we have a breakout space, but anyway, we'll just vamp on that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So we want to touch on something. We got 1 minute too.
That's it, really. So yeah, you can link up with us out there, talk about any of those topics, which is literally everything within the space, which is we're game for it. We love this stuff, nerd out about it, or just want to know about Jamaica and the sunshine and what it feels like to come back on the rainiest, darkest week ever. But I always bring the bad weather. So anyways, with that said, I appreciate all of you.
So hopefully you enjoyed that. Just a little taste of NFT NYC. This is the official last piece I'm going to put out about NFT NYC 2024. It was a great experience. I hope to stay in contact with both of the guys that took the stage with me. It was really a pleasure, and love to have them on the show in the future just to speak about all the cool things that they're building, because they're doing some really cool things. So I will leave their contact information in the show notes. Check them out. Check out what they're building. And one more time, I'm going to put that call of action out there. If there are any conferences that you'll be attending for the rest of this year, please let me know what I should have on my radar. Please shoot me a message over at Tropic Vibes on X, or use some contact information in the show notes. But as usual, I just want to thank you for taking time to listen to this as we're learning and building Web3 together. So until next time, later. The Nifty Business Arrow is not investment advice. It provides insights and information within the space. As with anything, please do your own research before making a decision whether you're making an investment or a purchase.